In today's episode of Joe Knows Retirement, we're going to be talking about the 3 things to do if you have a pension. These are 3 things that are very applicable to what we see very often with the pension planning we do for our clients, but also very actionable things that you can take away from this video to make sure you can put yourself in a better position starting today. And so that's the hope of this video, is to point out some of the key considerations to think about if you are in that unique situation of having a pension, knowing less than 20% of people have a pension.
Joe knows taxes.
Joe knows the market.
Joe knows Social Security.
Joe knows income planning.
Joe knows pickleball? No.
This is Joe Knows Retirement.
If this is your first time watching our channel, Joe Knows Retirement, I'd love to welcome you in. My name is Joe Schmitz. I'm the founder and CEO of Peak Retirement Planning, and this is something that we are very passionate about, is pension planning. This is an area that we specialize in so much that I wrote a book called The 2% Club, which is about those with pensions, which, as I mentioned, less than 20% of people have, and those with $1 million or more saved, which is less than 10% of people. So if you find yourself in that category, if you combine those two numbers, you're left with only 2% of the population who is in the scenario of high income and a high net worth. That means your planning is more unique. So let's break down 3 of the key considerations to think about that you can do if you're in this scenario. The first thing that we want to make sure we're doing is we are running our numbers. And so this is something that we see a lot of people who have pension, $1 million plus, they may not understand how good of a situation that they're in. And so that's what I would tell you, is drop what you're doing right now and start to run out a projection of what your situation looks like. And I'm going to run through a simple scenario for you to have an idea of how well that you have done. And so let's just say that, for example, your pension is $50,000 a year. And so that means that when you retire, you'll have $50,000 paid out to you every single year for the rest of your life. That is an awesome, awesome blessing to have there. You're going to be in a great scenario throughout your retirement because of that guaranteed income stream. Now, let's say that your Social Security on top of that, let's say it's a married couple. Let's say that your Social Security combined is $60,000 a year. Well, those two numbers put you at $110,000 a year. So I'm going to tell you here today, if that's you, you're going to have a hard time running out of money knowing that there's going to be 6 figures coming into your mailbox every single year for the rest of your life. Now, if you're that Midwestern millionaire that I wrote a book about, then you're probably going to have a hard time spending more than that, even if you wanted to, in your retirement. And so that is a great place to be. So I want you to understand why running the numbers is so important, is because people may not understand that they're going to be in the same or higher income scenario during their retirement than when they're working. And so here's another analysis to understand when you run your numbers of how good of a situation you're in. Now, 110, it doesn't stop there. If you have $1 million or more, you have to also consider taking withdrawals from your investments as income in retirement if you choose to. Some of our clients never need their income from their investments, and so their investments keep growing over time. And so we have to have a conversation with them of what do we want to do with this wealth. We call it our purpose of money conversation. Do we want to spend it? Do we want to gift it to our loved ones, or do we want to give it to charities? But we know if we do nothing, when we pass, all that wealth will go to the next generation, likely to the children. And so they're going to be left with millions of dollars if we don't plan for it now or do something different for our retirement. If you only need $100,000 to live on and you have $110,000 guaranteed, you're probably never going to touch the rest of your assets moving forward. And so it's going to grow and compound and probably double every 10 years. And so by the time, if you have $1 million now, it could be $2 million, and then it could be $4 million by the time you pass away. And so it's a great opportunity to have. And I if I'm your children, I'm very excited about that. That's left behind. But often we hear our clients' children tell our clients to spend your money, do something with it. We don't necessarily need it. When you pass away, we're probably going to be in our 60s, and there may not be as much of a need for it. And you've already given us all the lessons and all the hard work that we need to be successful moving forward. And so just something for you to consider is, what are you going to do with this wealth, knowing you're probably going to have more than you need? And that's where I always say our clients aren't necessarily worried about running out of money when they see the numbers. They're more worried about running out of life and not being the best steward of their life savings. So that's where we've created a concept called Purpose of Money, where we can have to look at 3 things to do with this money. We can spend it. What does that mean? Well, maybe it means more traveling. Maybe it means more home improvements. Maybe it means, doing the things that we never plan on doing. Maybe it means investing more into our health. Maybe you get a weekly massage, or maybe you start to go to a personal trainer, because investing in your health is wealth. And so just looking for more opportunities to improve your standard of living throughout your retirement. You've worked hard for it. Now let's look to make sure that we can enjoy it. So that could be one thing to consider, is spending money. Now, again, a lot of our clients, we have to arm wrestle them to spend more money in retirement, because that's just not their nature. I mean, they still are this type of people that go to the store and buy things on sale, or, still drive across town to save money on gas. So if that's you, hey, that's great. That's what got you to this place. So I'm not telling you to change who you are. I'm just giving you permission and something to think about, is that maybe you could spend more if it would give you more enjoyment. So maybe you're already doing that and you feel like I can't spend any more, or maybe you don't want to spend anymore. Well, that's where we go to the next 2 concepts in our Purpose of Money conversation, which is giving and gifting. So there's a slight difference between the 2. With gifting, we're thinking about loved ones. And with giving, we're thinking about charities, organizations, churches, where you could leave an impact to. And so our clients, typically are looking to do all 3 of those Purpose of Money conversations that we just talked about. But with the gifting one, they know that when they pass, it's likely to go to the children, because they're probably going to be listed as beneficiaries on the investment accounts. But what about gifting to them now, while they're living? That could be a great opportunity to provide them more resources for maybe your grandchildren to have more money to do things that they may not have gotten the opportunity to do. Maybe it could mean a family vacation for your family that you get to spend quality time together with them. Maybe it means you giving them money to be able to invest in their retirement accounts and max those out to get the tax benefits moving forward, and have more in their nest egg when that time comes later in life, and you can actually invest in them versus giving them money just to squander and spend right now. And so, that's a big concern that we see a lot of clients not wanting to gift their children money, because they always say, hey, I got here through hard work and having to get it on my own. I don't want to have to force them in a position where they now don't need to do that. And that's a real concern that people have. And so, if there's a way you can invest into them without it, changing their values or changing the amount of time that they work, not forcing them into early retirement maybe necessarily. So there's different things to consider when you have this conversation. And then the other thing that we think about is giving to charities. And so maybe you want to give more to your church. Maybe your church has a building project, or maybe there's a big mission that they support that you'd like to put more money towards. Or maybe there's a charitable organization that's local that you'd like to bless as well. And so whatever the case is in that scenario, just making sure you have the ability to do so. And this is one that I've always had a hard time with, because our culture, our society, it doesn't really encourage being generous as much. And so, often people think, well, I'm going to be, out money if I give more. I don't know if I have enough to give more. So what we try to do with clients is show them, hey, if you gave this much money, your goals are not changed. You can still do everything you wanted to. And you gifting that money now, the only impact it's having is on your future inheritance that you're going to be leaving behind. And so do you want that inheritance to go to these people, or do you want it to go to some of it to this organization where it's making an impact, your heart's for it? And so that's where we really start to try to encourage clients to don't think too small when it comes to being generous. You likely have more money than you think. And so it's about running those numbers, which is point number 1 here, to make sure you can truly steward this wealth in the best way, but truly see the impact of what you've worked hard for over all these years. We always use a Bible verse here, Psalms 24:1, God owns everything. And so we're just here to be the best stewards of it. It's something that I believe in, and to make sure that we're making it the most purpose out of what we've worked so hard for. And so after we run our numbers, after we see what's possible, we now need to start thinking about all the technical things to consider. And so one of the biggest things to consider if you have a pension that you're going to want to start looking at now, and if you haven't been doing this, you may have left money on the table. This could have been missed opportunity, but I always tell you, we can't change the past. We can only change the future. And so the second point we're going to discuss is what's called a Roth conversion. This is a huge strategy right now with the current lower tax rates that we're seeing. The One Big Beautiful Bill gave us some generous tax savings that we can make sure we're maximizing now before they could potentially change in the future. And so this is where a strategy where you move money from your tax deferred investments to your tax-free investments. So if you have an IRA or 401k or TSP or deferred comp or any employer retirement plan here, this is when you pay the taxes on it now to move it to a Roth IRA. Now, it's important to understand what type of account you have. There's some 401ks that don't allow you to do this Roth conversion. So you're going to want to look to move that to an IRA. So if you're over age 59 and a half, you can do something called an in-service withdrawal with most 401k plans out there. That allows you to move that portion to an IRA, still be able to contribute, and then you get the tax benefits of being able to do a Roth conversion. So a lot of our clients do that who are 59 and a half, but maybe still are working. Now, if you're retired, you can do this at any time. Just be aware of doing this. If you retire before 59 and a half, maybe you're 56, there's something called the rule of 55 on your 401k where you can still take out money penalty free. Versus if you move it to an IRA, you would have to take out a penalty until 59 and a half. So there's some things to plan for there in that scenario to make sure you're optimizing this decision, but still make sure you're looking at a Roth conversion. So we always encourage people, make sure you at least run your numbers to see if this is a viable opportunity for you today. And I can tell you, if you have a pension, $1 million plus, I can't guarantee it makes sense for you, but I can tell you that the majority of our clients in your shoes are doing this. And that doesn't mean that they're converting everything over to Roth. It just means that they're doing something each year to make sure they're taking advantage of the lower brackets we're seeing right now. And one of the big reasons why Roth conversions make sense, not only for the lower tax rates, it's because you may be in a higher tax bracket in retirement with that pension, with that Social Security, with what they call required minimum distribution. All of that playing together, as we just talked through in the last scenario, could force you into paying higher taxes in your retirement. So maybe we can front end it and look to pay that tax now, especially while this investment is lower, especially while the tax rates are lower, so that we can get all this growth moving forward tax-free. So maybe not a strategy everyone should consider, but those with pensions in this niche, in that 2% club, very advantageous thing to look at. So if you haven't currently been doing this, highly encourage you to run your numbers. Again, another important reason why number one makes sense is not only to show you an analysis of if you're good or not, but also to show you an analysis of where you're going to be at from a tax standpoint, not only today, but also next year and the year after, in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years down the road, so that you can optimize those decisions today. Because a Roth conversion, it's all about paying the lowest amount of taxes versus what you could pay in the future. So make sure you're looking at that one. This is one of the bigger concepts to plan for, especially if you have all your money in tax deferred investments right now, which don't feel bad. Most people do. When most people come and see us, that's typically the case because less than 25% of people even have a Roth IRA open. And so with that being the case, make sure you're planning for that now. Now, the third thing to plan for if you have a pension is when it comes to your pension options when you retire. So if you are already retired, this may not be a consideration for you. You maybe already made your decisions on this. But if you are near retirement, or maybe you are retiring right now, I want to make sure you understand the weight behind making these pension option decisions. You can't change it. Once it's done, it's done. And so we need to run our numbers on this one as well. You can see how run your numbers plays a part into every decision that we make with our pension. And so with this, what are we running our numbers about? We're running our numbers to see, does it make sense to take the lump sum, the partial lump sum, or maybe no lump sum? Maybe we want the highest amount guaranteed in our income stream for life, or maybe we're okay having a lesser to have that lump sum, or maybe we're just say, hey, we want that lump sum. It's a very generous amount, and that's going to leave us in a better position moving forward. I can tell you that all those viewers watching this likely are going to have different pros and cons for each of these. Some of you, it's going to make sense to take this ongoing payment. Some of you, it's going to make sense to take the lump sum. A lot of it depends on your goals, but also the type of pension that you have. Some make it more generous to take the lump sum. Others make it less generous. And so again, running your numbers is going to give you that answer. This is something we do with all of our clients when they reach this point. It's one of the biggest reasons people work with us is to make sure they're making the right decisions with this. So we have proprietary software that we run their numbers to see if we take the lump sum, is that going to be more beneficial than the monthly payments ongoing for life? And so we run the math behind it to make sure we make a data-driven decision versus an emotional decision. We've seen people come to us that when we ask them like, hey, what were you going to do with your pension? They're like, well, I'm just going to take the lump sum. And I'm like, well, did you run your numbers? They're like, no, it just sounds good. You know, I want to make sure something's there for my kids if I pass. And I'm like, well, if you would have just taken the monthly, that you could end up with hundreds of $1,000s more if you just lived at this age. And so, we really want to run those numbers to see what that looks like. And then on the, other end of that conversation is, Well, if he passes away within 5 years, and yeah, taking the lump sum is going to leave a generous amount there for his family and even his children if he passes away. So, we are seeing the lump sum become more advantageous nowadays. And so that's something to consider to look at and just make sure you have the pros and cons understood before you make that irreversible decision. And then the other pension option that we give a lot of advice on is a survivorship option. Should your spouse get 100% or none, or anywhere between? And so a lot of people are afraid to make that decision and fear that their spouse is not going to be okay in retirement. So most people are looking at taking 50% or 100% because they just want to make sure they don't mess up. And I understand that, and I actually applaud that. Making sure your spouse is taken care of in retirement is so important, and it's very noble. But understand you may be over-insuring by doing that higher survivorship option scenario. So here's what I mean by that. If you're 30 years old and you need $2 million of life insurance coverage, are you going to go out and buy $10 million of life insurance coverage and pay much more for it? Or are you just going to get $2 million knowing that your spouse is going to be more than okay during her lifetime if you pass away, or his lifetime if you pass away? And so based on that, we can tell pretty quickly of what that right amount is by just running our numbers to see what is the income need, what is the amount needed to provide that spouse that surefire understanding that they're going to be good to go moving forward. But what I'm here to tell you is that what if you're in a place where you could self-insure and not have to take the survivorship option? Maybe you have life insurance in place. Maybe you have enough in investments where you don't even need life insurance. Maybe your spouse has a pension to where that $500 a month that you could pay for your survivorship, or even $1,000 a month in some scenarios, may not be as worthwhile to do. And you could pocket that money, you could invest that money, you could save that money for maybe an inheritance or more to be left behind for that spouse. So we want to look at both of those options very carefully. I do want to make it very clear as well with the survivorship. We're not telling you not to do 100%. Many of our clients choose 100%. I'm just telling you, if you haven't run your numbers, you don't know if that's the best decision. We've ran also many times as well where we recommend clients don't take any survivorship, and they allows them to save so much money. Because if your spouse passes first, all of that money you paid in, if you paid $1,000 a month, that's $12,000 a year. Say you went 10 years and then your spouse passed away first, you just wasted $120,000 in that scenario. And I don't want to say it was a waste because it was insurance in that regard, but was that even needed in that scenario? So you can even see if you play this out longer, let's say that your spouse lives to 80 and you live to 81 and you retire at 60, that's 20 years of paying into this without even an opportunity for it to pay out. Or maybe you pass away at 80, your spouse passed away at 81, it only paid out for 1 year. Your spouse only got your pension for 1 year, but you got to pay 20 years for it, which means you're not going to come out ahead in that scenario. Now, there's the opposite side. I always want to show both sides of the equation. Now, if you pass away tomorrow, that is a large payment that your spouse could get if they lived another 30 years. So whenever we run the analysis on this, we always want to see what is the expectation if that spouse were to pass away tomorrow. We always want it to be worst case scenario and plan for the best. And so that's going to allow us to make sure we've got more than enough coverage over time. And, if you look at a life insurance strategy, I talk about this in my book, The 2% Club, you may not need a permanent insurance coverage of $1 million. Maybe you need to level term for maybe 10-year term, and then a 20-year term, and then a permanent insurance policy for a remainder small amount. And that could allow you to get the costs lower, but also the need is going to go down as that client gets older. So just to understand how all this works and making sure you have a plan for this is going to be very valuable. And so those are the 3 things to do if you have a pension. Now, if you've been watching our channel for a while, we get a lot of people who in this scenario where they've shared this channel with their family and friends. And so I would encourage you to do so. We've actually gotten a lot of clients that have come from us, from people who watch our channel. They're not even clients of ours, but they told us that friends recommended them to watch their channel. And so that's probably one of the main reasons why our channel is growing, is because it's so niched. It's about pensions and those who have been diligent savers. And so if you know someone with a pension, share this video with them. I hope it can be a huge blessing for them. I hope they can be in a better spot than when they first started to watch the video, just by understanding they have all these resources at their fingertips. They have my books, they have the YouTube channel, they have the Kiplinger articles that we write to make sure they can be in the best position possible. So whether that's your family member, your friend, maybe your coworker, obviously if you have a pension, you'll probably work with many people in this scenario. And so we'd love to help those people. So share the information, and we'll look forward to seeing you and your friends on the next episode of Joe Knows Retirement.